Right now I have my pieces cut. This is the upper, this is the lower, and then this is for my section. And then I'm not going to show what I'm doing with the section because I have several videos on making sections anyway. So if you want to learn how to make a section, you can just refer to one of those videos. I'll put a link in the description. So we're going to start with the upper, and then like a traditional pen kit, I've got a black line marked from here to here so that I know which side I'm drilling my holes from. And also I want to point out that I've got an X on the opposing ends so that I know I don't drill on that side by mistake, because I want to be able to follow the grain from top to bottom, just like a regular wood pen. Okay, I'm going to be drilling a hole this deep right here, which is a little over 2 inches. If I take my cap from a previous pen, you can see that that lines up with that. So that goes into probably about here or so. Anyway, so that's how deep we're going to make that. And remember to do your drilling nice and slow so it doesn't overheat on the inside. This is a 1/2 inch drill bit, and I'm just going to do that in that size, and then I'm going to enlarge it with a 33/64 so I can run the die through it. Face me down. This is the clean out. So I put a mark here and then have a mark on the opposite side. The first thing I want to do before I tap this out, I want to use my cutter here and just cut the side of it and just trim it flush. That way I have a nice even face. So off camera I removed the face of this. Getting ready to use the die on here with a tap, and I put a little mineral oil in there, so we'll just go ahead and run that through real quick. Ordinarily I would put a hose clamp on the outside, but since this is Ebonite, I'm not going to worry about it. It taps really good. And I'm only going to go in about halfway or so. Oops, I didn't tighten that down. And Ebonite is a dream to run the tap and die on. We've never had a chance to do that. And then I'll explain something here. What we're going to do next. I've got a pencil line here and then another one there, 1/4 inch. And I'm going to hog out the middle down to about 5/8. And then we'll explain as we go from there. At the lathe, I'm going to be using my Ebonite universal jig. This one actually holds the lower section or the body. This is the cap right here. And in the middle of this tenon, this holds the section. So what do I mean by that? Well, we'll thread this on here like this. You can see how that holds that. So if you're new to kitless pin turning or custom pin turning, this is a homemade one that I made based off of a 14mm double start pin, double start tap and die, which is the only setup that I have for now. So, but anyway, this is the top of the cap. This is the section that's in the middle, of course, because that's where it's threaded in the open end. This is a closed end. So I'm going to start with this piece right here with that 1/4 inch line, and then I'm going to go to this other line right here that you can barely make out right there. And I am going to use, well actually I used a 5/8 inch drill bit, and I have my caliper set to 5/8 of an inch in there like so. And that's how deep that gully is going to be, so I can add my steampunk stuff inside there. And right now the wall is about 2.7 millimeters thick, so I don't really want to go too deep, otherwise it'll just cave in on me. So this is a sort of a touch and go thing. Okay, off camera, I turn that down, otherwise it will be a really long video. And again, that is down to 5/8 of an inch all the way across. And now the next step is to run our registration lines all the way across. And I need 5 lines of equal measure. So to make things simple, so to make things simple, as confusing as this looks, this is my jig that I use. The dark black lines are is a star, 5 points, and then I have a square over here. Or actually I'm sorry, I have it marked, indexed out 1, 2, 3, and 4. So anyway, what this does is, this is my generic jig, this is my sharpening jig, so I like stuff that does double duty. So we'll show you how this works in a second. Okay, so I'm putting this back on without the spacer. This is going to be held in place with this right here. Make sure that is out. There, now that's nice and flush. Okay, now we're cooking. Make sure that's nice and tight so it doesn't wobble. Okay, now how it works is I'm just gonna line up this here. I need my tool rest. Now this is my straight line reference. Let me get something to mark that with. So if you have a combination square, I'm using the scratch awl right here, this little pin. taking that out, and that is going to be my point to scribe my line. Actually, this needs to sit flush up against here like that. Make sure I got both points of contact so I get a nice straight line. I'm going to hold this level straight across and hold this tight with these two fingers right here. Give that a good scratch. Okay, so there's one line. I'm going to rotate this to the next line. Being that I like simple tools, simple jigs, stuff that you can make at home instead of having to buy an expensive indexing jig. You can make this yourself for a couple of bucks, really cheap. You know, and chances are you probably have an old picture frame that has a hardboard backing you can use. We're going to advance it to the next one. And how I came up with the star to get the exact measurements across the star, I just went online. I looked up an old Chrysler logo, star logo, printed it out, and then traced the outline from the points onto this disc, and away you go. So pretty simple. Now I have a perfect 5-point reference, and then I did the same thing with the box. Okay, so there we go. There's our 5 points, evenly spaced all the way around. Okay, I rough sanded the high points of that off, but I could still make out the line, and that's all I'm really worried about at this point. So that line is just a reference point for me when I apply the nibs on here like that. I'm going to apply these on with my favorite nail hardener, Sally Hansen. I just got this at Walgreens or CVS, whatever it was. This works out really well to apply Steampunk. Let's put a couple of dabs on. Oops, I hate when that happens. It needs to be upright. I need to put it on the bottom of that. It's not catching it. So what I'm doing, I'm applying it like this. And then I'm eyeballing it to make sure it goes straight across that line. As best as I can. And then we'll let that set for 15 minutes or so, and then move all the way around. This usually takes about a day. So when I first started this, I had mentioned that I was going to make this a little bit thinner because it was a little too thick. It was like 15 millimeters. And anyway, I'm putting a straight edge on that, and you can see that there's a little bit of a gap now, probably about a millimeter gap. It's proud, or not proud. It's got a shoulder of about a millimeter after I put these on. I turned it down to 15 millimeters from the 18 millimeter diameter down to 15 millimeters on the inside, so it only gives me about a 1 millimeter wall thickness on the inside here. And to double check that, you've probably seen one of these before. Let me zoom out or zoom in. One of these figure 8 tools. So it's a little bit big to try and get inside there, you know, to get a good reading on. So what I did was I made my own. Since I like making my own tools, this is just made out of plastic. This is like my second attempt, so it's not 100% perfect. And being that it's plastic, it's a little flexible, so it's not 100% accurate like a figure 8 tool because this is made out of steel. But for me, this gets the job done. So let me spin this around. You can see how that looks from a distance. And I left the one spot open right there so that I can get a read on this. On the tool here, you'll notice this side is thicker than this side. It's so I can get this on the inside of the body of the pen, and this side for the cap. It just works a little better. So I can do it either way. And if, let me turn this down like this here and readjust my camera angle. Let me put that down. And then you can see that it's kind of hard to see here, but there's about a gap that's I can register. I could feel it hit. So there's about a millimeter of a gap right there. So it's kind of hard to see. Let me put my finger behind it as a gap so you can see the color. So anyway, this is a little tool that I made so I can tell the wall thickness. And anyway, I just have to put on a few more gears. Come back in, zoom in, see what that looks like. A few more gears, and then I'll cast that one in resin, and then I'll start on the bottom side. Now, I started this probably about 2 weeks ago. I just haven't had the time to get out here and work on this as much as I would like. But the next one you'll see, I'll do the same thing for the body, which will look pretty good. Okay, I got most of my blank finished here. Now I'm putting on the final coat of nail polish, and it's right here. I just use it as a sealer so that I won't get any air bubbles. As I'm casting it. And actually, I coat the whole thing with this same nail polish I use to adhere the gears. I'm just going over this with 100% to seal any little gaps. We'll let that cure a couple days.